today we're going to be tying a downed caddis. This just happens to be a Kelly Galloup pattern. And I do like to use a lot of the patterns that he ties, partly because he's a good tyer, a great tyer, but also because he fishes the same waters that I usually fish, up in the inner Mountain West, Madison River, Henry's Fork. And so these are bugs that are on the waters that we're fishing, and that I'm fishing whenever I get the chance to. This is a great pattern to have kind of trailing behind a dry fly, maybe 6 to 8 inches behind a dry fly. And you'll be surprised, they'll take this before they take your dry fly. So suddenly your dry fly just becomes a strike indicator instead of a dry fly. So I'm just going to take the thread down around the bend of the hook, just a little ways here. We're going to be using some superfine dubbing. And we're going to start out with a really kind of a pronounced egg sac here at the very back end here. And I really want it to pop out. So we're going to be using the superfine dubbing, but we're using a chartreuse color here, and that will just really stand out, especially when we tie the body, which will be a lot darker in color. And so it really kind of separates those two parts of the body out. If I can get that started, I'll go ahead and move that down. So I'm just going to take some wraps here, overlapping them, not in any kind of a hurry, but I am trying to create more of a ball there than anything else. A nice ball of dubbing that's going to represent the egg sac of this downed caddis. So once I've got that there, and that looks fairly close to what I want. So now we're going to turn to the abdomen here, and we're going to just be using a little bit of brown olive superfine. And I'm going to probably come back for a couple of helpings here. This pattern, as with a lot of patterns, it's better to underdub than to overdub. We're going to create a taper here too. So I don't want to try to just gob all this on at the same time just in order to get myself that taper that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and slide that down, and I'll tighten this up as I go along. And you'll see that this is going to create a nice contrast to that egg sac. And then I am just going to work my way up the shank of the hook. I'll keep tightening down this dubbing a little bit. And then I'll take a few wraps over it, the previous wrap, just so that I can work on the tapering here. There we go. And like I said, it's fine to just go slow with this. I am just going to grab the tiniest little bit more. Just a tiny wisp here. When I say wisp, especially with superfine, I mean wisp. Just barely enough to kind of coat the thread there. I've got a hair that's come along from who knows what. Certainly not me, because I don't have any. Alright, so slide that down, and let's go ahead, continue up a little bit more towards the eye here while going back over to help create that taper that we're looking for. And that's going to do us pretty good right there. I'm satisfied with that. This is a size 16, by the way. Tie at 16, or this is a 14. Sorry. You'll tie it down to 16, 18, 20 in those ranges for sure. So this fly is going to have a nice little wing that goes off the back. I'm just going to use some kind of antron-ish yarn here, and I'm going to go gray. You can go white if you want, make it a little bit more pronounced, but for me this gray is going to work just fine. I'm going to tie this right on the top of the shank of the hook here, just with a couple of thread wraps to get it nice and secured. Pull it back and make sure that I've got it anchored in place there where I want it, and come back. Get that tied down nice and tight. I can come in now with my scissors, and we'll just go ahead and cut off the balance of the yarn there. Then we'll just go ahead and cover up those butt ends with our thread, and start to create the little bit of a ramp towards the eye of our hook. So I'm just using a gel spun here in black, GSP, whatever you want to call it. The wing that's coming over the top here, we want it to extend about to where that egg sac is. So I'll kind of use that as my measurement. And we'll cut that off. From here, we're going to do a nice soft tackle. You hopefully all know that I love tying soft tackles, and I'm not being cynical, which I am cynical from time to time. I'm going to use Partridge. Surprise, surprise. Hungarian Partridge is really a great go-to material. I've already pulled a few feathers off here because I'm tying up a few of these today. And I'm going to just strip off the fuzzy bits towards the bottom on either side. So I'm kind of left with a nice feather that's looking like this. From there, I'm going to stroke some of these fibers backwards. I'm going to want an even amount on either side. And these are the fibers that are going to become our soft hackle. Sometimes I'll throw that tip into a hackle plier. Just makes it a little bit easier to kind of hold on to. But sometimes I find that it does its job too well and kind of over grabs some of these. So now our feather is looking like this. I'm going to go ahead and wet my fingers here, and we're going to just pull that top together just like that. That's going to be our tie-in point. So I'm going to just come in and cut a tiny bit off there to give us that nice little triangle that's going to be our tie-in point. So with our tie-in point, we go ahead and get our thread attached right around that little triangle. About like that. I want to get that nice and secured down. I'm going to check for length there. I'll go ahead and cut off a tiny little bit that's there, hanging out over the eye of the hook, just to clean this up a little bit. That's looking just fine. Trying to keep those hackle fibers pointed backwards as I just continue up behind the eye of the hook. And then I just want to make sure that I have a pretty nice and even ramp for that soft hackle to travel here. I'm going to throw a tiny little bit of wax on my thread just to secure that soft hackle down as we get it closer to the eye of the hook, and we can really secure it. So then I'm just going to grab myself my hackle pliers, and I'm going to grab hold of the stem of that partridge feather here. Don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. I'm going to want to stand it up, face it backwards. We're going to wet our fingers and preen these fibers backwards towards the back of the hook. Then I'm going to take my first wrap around, and when I get up to the top, some of those fibers will have gotten out of alignment, so I'll just go ahead and sweep them all backwards again one more time. We're probably only going to get 2 or 3 wraps here before we run out of material, so then we're going to go ahead and take another wrap. We're just moving up towards the eye slowly but surely, and we will get there. You can see we only have a little bit of that left, so we'll probably just get this one last wrap in here, just about like that. Go ahead and throw my thread over the top of that stem. We have a couple that have escaped, but that will be easily fixed. I should be able to let go of my hackle plier at that point. And with that, I'm just going to sneak in here. We're going to cut off the stem of the partridge feather right about there, right so it's tight up against the hook. And with that, I'm just going to stroke all of these fibers backwards, including our escapees. This doesn't need a very pronounced head, so I'm just going to take a couple of wraps here, partly to cover up the materials, but we now have a nice soft hackle that's, moving back towards the bend of the hook. That's exactly what we were looking for. So with that, we're going to try to throw in a whip finish here, if my GSP was going to behave, or my thread. I'm going to want this to get a little bit thicker as it moves up towards the bend of the hook. So you want your thread to kind of taper in that direction. Pull that nice and tight. Then just grab the back end of my whip finisher, which is also a cutting tool. We'll throw some varnish on there. And there you have it. The Downed Caddis, nice soft hackle pattern, egg sac in the back. Let it drag behind one of your dry flies. Give it a shot when you're out on the river. 6 to 8 inches. I think you'll be happy. Throw a hook in your vise and give it a shot.